Laura Donnelly here, founder of the Healing Path Conversation Series and Dancing with Ease, Body-Brain Balance. So today I was talking about tradition, and part of what I do is I teach people to move out of pain, and sometimes traditions are painful. And sometimes traditions are comforting. So let's see, excuse me, every morning I have coffee to wake up. And usually I do that before I show up anywhere to engage with other people. And today, because it's the holiday, it's kind of officially starting on the weekend, Saturday, everything is out of normal range. The temperature out of normal range, 4 degrees. So I'm sitting in my house with my warm fuzzies on, and the coffee's perking. And it was 9:30, and I said I would go at 9:30. So 4 days of consistency is pretty good for me, because my tradition is to not be consistent, my personal tradition. So we have personal traditions, we have family traditions, we have cultural traditions, there can be religious traditions, and sometimes the traditions meet up and are side by side, and that's fine. And sometimes they bang into each other. So one of the most important things for me, and I encourage you to explore this, and if it works for you, great. Look at the traditions that you have in your life. That would be your family, yourself, and maybe your extended family, maybe your church family, maybe your work family. Identify the traditions that are benefiting your life, bringing you something that is enriching, and maybe something that's helpful to others. A friend of mine, April Hyatt, she and her friend, her husband, decided to do something different this year. And so instead of presents, they planned a trip together. And then they just decided to do small, generous kindnesses during the week before Christmas and the week after Christmas. And probably, knowing them, it will turn into a habit, a new tradition of living, but small things that might help people. Just simple things like telling the clerk at the store that you are very appreciative that they're there when you needed to run in at the last minute and buy butter for your mashed potatoes or whatever. Or leaving a little bit of an extra tip for somebody at a restaurant who did a good job, who's working through the holiday season. Whatever comes to you as a kindness to another person, to be thinking in that way and share that as a new tradition in your life. So another name for traditions is habits. When you have something you always do at a specific time, whether it's a day, right? Like I always have coffee in the morning, whether it's a year, there can be annual habits, there can be seasonal habits, there can be daily habits, and not anything wrong with a habit. A lot of times we qualify habits as bad habits. And a tradition, by its nature, the repetition of it can become habitual. One Christmas, my brother and I were both living in New York, and we were flying back to Kansas. And last minute, I mean, we put it off till close to the holiday time, and then in the middle of the flight, because Kansas is a hard place to get to, we had to fly to Chicago and then to some city in Kansas, and then rent a car and then drive, because Hey, what's the point of living here if you're in the middle of all of everything and not out in the wilderness? See, that's my impression, but that's the thing I love about Kansas, being close to the land and the sky. So so we were en route and we land in Chicago, and I can't remember if our plane just took on new passengers or what, but whatever, the wings got covered in ice and they canceled the flight and they put us up in a hotel. It's the most freezing cold hotel I've ever been in. The heater didn't work in our room, but we were so tired and we were polite. We were young. We were young. We were polite and we didn't think to call the desk and say, we need a new room. This one has no heat, whatever. We managed to get home. But for years and years, I really pushed myself to get home before Christmas. And one year, it just wasn't happening. And I ended up flying on Christmas Day, which again, not my first choice because I don't like to make people work on the holiday. But it was like half price. It's not cheap to get to Kansas from anywhere. So I broke the tradition, but I saved some money. I still had a good holiday with my family. So there are ways that you can break a habit or that you can break a tradition or not break it, but change it so that this year you do the things that are important to you that are part of the tradition without necessarily doing the steps of the tradition in the order that you always did them. And to be open to that, to feel when, we have to have this special dish and the ingredients aren't in the store, then how are you going to deal with that? That's a traditional dish at your family's gathering. But how are you going to deal with it if that's not possible this year with ease and grace? Find out where you're running down the path to anxiety and stress, and it has to be a certain way. And give yourself permission to say, I wonder how I could do the important part of this, which is sharing something I made for everyone to eat, so that that piece of the tradition is upheld, even though this particular dish, traditional dish, isn't part of that. It's just a question. You can still be disappointed and you can still go forward. And maybe you'll make a new tradition. Maybe the new dish would be the younger generation's favorite. You never know. So take good care and have a good holiday.